What's up, everyone? Welcome to Level 7, and it's time for another episode of the Agents of Fandom podcast. And as I teased in the YouTube chat, it's Spider time. It's time for us to talk about your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. That sound, wow, and I hear the little extra sound coming back from my laptop, which wasn't muted yet. It's haunting for some people. It's exciting for others, but we got to get a little Marvel Rivals tease in every episode since it has taken over our live. I am your host, TJ Zwarych, joined, as always, though I did not expect to be until the last minute as he got released from jury duty a little early.
Woo! Thank you, Matt Murdock.
It's Spider time! God, that haunts my dreams, man. That haunts my dreams as a Magic secondary user. Can't stand Penny Parker just full-fledged running down my throat. Scares me every time. But I'm very excited to talk about this show. I'm very excited to talk about it today. I didn't expect to talk about this today, so this will be full-fledged. Let's just go in there, no plan. Just like my Marvel Rivals game plan.
And helping us break it down as well today, we have one of the Agents of Fandom's own, Ryan Cortero. Welcome back. Big time Spidey fan like myself. How are you doing today?
I am good. I am very excited to be talking about a new Spider-Man show that isn't really directed towards kids, because I know that's been going on for a little bit, but this feels like a good return to the Spider-Man fandom. So I'm excited to talk about it.
And making his Agents of Fandom podcast debut today, we have our friend Chris, aka Luminous Dagger, on socials. Welcome, Chris. Thank you so much for joining us.
No worries, it's my pleasure. Honestly, I've been watching your past few podcasts, and I was like, I need to be on here, especially for Spider-Man, because I've been so excited for this show compared to like everyone else online before it came out. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Couldn't agree more. I'm really excited to dive into this show. Before we do, if you're watching us on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Helps us wonders. Let's help us grow this community. Hit the like button. It's all we need you to do. Make sure you're subscribed to the Agents Fandom YouTube page, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on socials at Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter. Agents of Fandom everywhere else. The first talking point I want to go to is, our guy MTF already talking about it in the YouTube chat. Let's get woke.
Okay. Oh god.
I got to shout out speaking of Agents of Fandom's own Adam Blevins over at Collider wrote a absolutely wonderful article breaking down Collider's interview with Peter Parker voice actor Hudson Thames. And this show's just about to come out. Everybody's excited for it. All you got to do is, just talk about how excited you are in these interviews. You don't have to say anything crazy to get people on board. And that didn't really happen to be the case here. I want to make sure I have the exact quote pulled up properly. Ryan, you could probably get to it a little quicker than I can, so I'll throw it to you first. He was worried that the show might be too woke and annoying, but it's not. It's really well written and it's really great. It's really awesome. I'm paraphrasing a little bit here. I will pull up the exact quote after I throw it to Ryan here first. But what were your initial thoughts when you first heard this?
I mean, it's whenever people use this word, you got to think like, okay, how do they use it? Because this word has obviously gone through a lot of different interpretations, especially in the online culture we have now. I thought my first thought was like, wow, a Peter Parker actor, a Spider-Man actor is saying something like this, and it just like completely took me out of like what this character means and what he stands for. And like, in Spider-Verse we get the line of anyone can wear the mask, and honestly, like, it just, that kind of message sticks through Spider-Man lore. And so to have like the actor kind of say something like this, be concerned that this show, because of its supporting cast and like the way they gender bend or race bend some of their characters, it's like, you're not supporting your cast. Like, you're not being a leader to your castmates who have gone through like hateful comments because of just being cast as a certain character, and it's just pretty disappointing that an actor is saying something like this, and especially with a creative like Jeff Trammell like at the head of this. It's like it's just frustrating. Again, it's not something that needed to be said. There's better ways to have said what he maybe was trying to say. Like maybe he was just trying to say like, I knew I had I was worried that this might not reach the certain fan base, but like I don't know. There's just I wish he went through better media training, because there's just better ways to have said what he was trying to convey.
The timing is so interesting to me because it comes when fresh off the news that The Acolyte was the second most watched original, like Disney Plus original streaming show last year, and it didn't get renewed for a second season. And it reminded me of the last expo that I was at. It wasn't New York Comic Con, but it was something local here in Canada. I think it was Edmonton, where I'm standing in line for somebody, and people in front of me start talking about The Acolyte, and one person says, "Oh yeah, I haven't started that yet. I'm excited." And the other person says, "Oh no, don't." Well, why not? Have you seen it? Well, no, I just watched some YouTube videos and it talked about how trash it is. And that reminded me exactly of kind of this exact comment, because his biggest fear, and this is me trying to understand. So this is strictly my interpretation of it. But he talks about his biggest fear, it was that it was going to be annoying and woke. Well, why did he think that? Probably from all the concept art that came out, where almost the entirety of the supporting cast is people of color, is women. And basically, as Adam wrote so eloquently in this article, he talks about how the word woke, even though, its origins are totally different. Its origins come from somebody being socially aware to the hardships and the oppression going on in their communities and around the world. But it's become a dog whistle for people who just don't want to see people of color, who don't want to see women, who don't want to see gay people in these projects. And so to me, what he ends up saying is like, it wasn't that. It isn't that. It's great that these are such well-written stories. And to me, that is just literally the exact problem of YouTube thumbnail reacts negatively about everything culture. Of, he thought it was going to be woke because there's people of color, but when we got into it, I found out these are real people. The stories are so good. And again, this is my interpretation of what he said. He didn't actually say those words. And that's the case of literally every show. When you watch it, any show that champions representation, there's nothing smacking you in the face. It's just people existing and having their stories being told. And they have the problem with it, and they won't even watch it. They'll just complain about it because the people exist, and they're not watching it, and they're complaining about something that they haven't even seen because of the types of people that are in it. And they don't want to see that. And it, all of a sudden, when you actually watch it and you dive in, oh, hey, this is pretty good. These stories are really awesome. And it just kind of speaks to somebody who has grown with this type of culture of, oh, it's woke, I don't want it, they're forcing these stories. Oh, how do you know? Did you watch it? Well, no, but that's what everybody said. But then you actually give something a chance, and all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, this is pretty good. I like hearing about these stories. Chris, what are your thoughts on these comments?
Well, just as like Ryan was saying, when I saw this yesterday, firstly, I was just shocked, mainly because, and even Adam says it in the article, Coleman Domingo is already going through people not liking the idea that he was playing a black Norman Osborn. So to hear that his own, like his co-lead or like his colleague, whatever, co-star is saying these words, whether it was his intention, like you said, he could have completely meant it in a different way. We won't know unless he comes out and says something else. But from just reading that statement and how it sounds and how it looked, it just made it seem, it just took in a completely different direction. A lot of people just straight away saying, oh, I'm not going to touch the show, essentially trying to like start boycotts on the show based off this one thing, when Jeff Trammell and so many other people have worked so hard. I think you got Grace Song voicing Nico, Zeno Robinson as Harry. There's so many, obviously we'll get into it, but like you said, gender swaps and like race bends. I mean, this is not the first time it's happened. We had it in Spectacular Spider-Man. Liz Allen was a different race. Like, it's not the first time. No one complained back then when it happened. So it's kind of sad.
Olivia Octavius.
Yeah, literally, no one ever complains. So it's kind of sad to see now that like it's something that people perceive as an issue for the sake of it being an issue. Because you mentioned Acolyte. I love the Acolyte. I thought the Acolyte was great, but people constantly every week just brought it down because of it's woke, like it's focusing on. I think there was a time, I can't remember the characters' names off the top of my head, but there was a time where they thought like a gay relationship was happening in the Acolyte, and they're like, it's bad because of this. And I'm watching it and I'm like, this is not the focus of the episode or the show. So I don't know why it's bothering you so much. I mean, we'll talk about it later as well for Your Friendly Neighbor Spider-Man, but with Nico's song, I didn't even notice that she was also interested in I can't remember her name right now, but she's supposed to be Wave in the comic.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't pick up that she was interested in her as well. So I don't know. To me, it doesn't seem like it's thrown in your face. And I'm glad people are giving the show a chance today. The response on Twitter was actually great. So I'm glad that it's not backfired.
I agree 100%. Overall, this is a show with a ton of amazing people and diverse people behind the creative team. And so I'm really glad that people are giving the show a chance because it is really good. And I'm excited for us to dive into it here. Damon, what were your thoughts when you heard the comments?
This is all I'll say on this. It's been 24 hours. Has there been a statement made?
Mm-mm.
No.
That tells you everything.
Hasn't tried to. Yeah, you know what? That's a good point.
That's to me, out of everything here, that's my biggest disappointment. If it was a misunderstanding, possibly could have been. This could have been prevented by now. It's not. That it actually really frustrates me.
Yeah, especially when you think like Anthony Mackie had that comment about America and like what that word even stands for.
Right.
He was right. He was right about what he said, but he still came out with a statement just to clarify, like just to show, like, you know what, this is unprompted on his Instagram story, like a very casual statement, and it's just like he didn't even need to put out one. This one by Hudson, it's like, bro, you need some context here. There's like, even though we got only a brief excerpt of this quote, like what even spurred him to say that thing? It's like there are so many ways that, again, if it is like poor media training or lack of, or if this is what he really stands for, like, again, the fact that there's no statement, like Damon said, speaks a lot to his character. I mean, we'll see. I don't know.
I saw somebody in StreamYard starred MTF's comment here. I thought maybe, Damon, that was you to
yeah, no, that was me. Because I totally agree with this, and this is the last thing I'll say on this. I am also frustrated his comment has been taken away from fans' enthusiasm for the show, because it has with me. This was a show, Ryan knows that when this was announced and when you started seeing the concept art, and when I knew Pearl Pangan was getting this show, a character I really enjoy with even the very few comic appearances that she's been in, because I really love my waterbenders. It's giving me the same taste in my mouth that I have for X-Men 97 all over again.
Oh, God.
And it has, which is frustrating. I have to look at things with a different eye when I do with that show, and I feel like I do now. And it has taken that away from me. That's all I'll say on that.
Where the difference is for me a little bit is I feel like I have an easier time separating this one because I don't really care about just one, person involved with. Yes, it's the lead role, but he didn't create the series. He's not the mind behind the series. And going forward, it'll be pretty easy if they want to. Josh Keaton, he's right there. Everybody's been wanting Josh Keaton back for a long time, and maybe this is the time to finally get him back. But let's start talking about the episodes themselves, because these comments did deteriorate a little bit from fan excitement, but we're still excited about this show, and it's been our really strong first two episodes. We want to shout out the creative team, Jeff Trammell, all the amazing people working on this project. And first two episodes, Damon, I'll keep it with you here. What did you initial thoughts? 2 episodes in, what do you think of the series?
So my biggest fear going into this series, as when we talked about, which was like our last thing we had a primer episode, was the animation of it all. And I will say the animation isn't amazing. I love the character designs. I love Leo Romero. I literally have a comic with him right behind me that he did with Kate Bishop and Kelly Thompson as the writer right behind me. I love his art style. So I love the designs of the characters. The animation itself is like, it's okay, but it didn't take me out of it. And that to me with this show, after I saw some of like the early previews and stuff, that was like, okay, this hasn't taken me out of it. That's good. I think it's very light. I think it's fun. I think it's a great twist and a take on not just Spider-Man, but our MCU Spider-Man. And I still love the fact, and I will go on this, I love the fact that this isn't our official sacred timeline origin story for Spider-Man, because now we can do whatever the heck we want with this character, with this story. And we're 2 episodes in, and we're already doing that.
TJ, you're muted.
I'm muted. If you have like questions about this series, who is Pearl Pangan? Is this an MCU Sacred Timeline series? Feel free to go back to your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man primer, everything you need to know about the series. We did another one for Daredevil Born Again, which will be coming in March. You can find it on the Agents of Fandom YouTube page. When you are subscribing and hitting that like button for this one, you can go check that out as well. We will have a lot of exciting stuff coming up here in the future. We're going to be not only covering weekly with live shows, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, Invincible, Severance, Daredevil Born Again, Captain America Brave New World when it drops in a couple weeks. We also have some fun interviews coming for Captain America Brave New World, for Daredevil Born Again, for Invincible. So stay tuned, because all of that will be coming to the channel within the next few weeks and months. So that's why you got to make sure you're hitting that like button and subscribing. Ryan, what did you think about the first 2 episodes of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man?
I really liked it. I similar to Damon's comment about the animation style, like it's not my favorite. Like I think I grew to like it, as the episodes were going on. I could see why they did it, especially when it comes to the action. I think it reminded me of how I felt when Dragon Ball Superhero did a similar like animation style change.
Which is funny because there's multiple kind of crossovers with these 2 projects.
Yes, exactly. Like, yeah, we have the voice actor Gamma 2, who voices Harry, right, in this show.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So it's a nice little nod there. But yeah, I think because of the action, I think that's why they kind of went with this animation style as well. Because like the web swinging, it's so easy. Like it's something that we haven't seen in a while with like Spider-Man. Unless you're like playing the games, like getting to see the web swinging around the city is just fun to see that in motion. And like when it's nice to see him like be a neighborhood Spider-Man again. I know with the MCU, like he's taking on a lot bigger threats. And I get why they did that to like kind of ground him, but not anymore because of Spider-Man 4 and the multiverse and all that. But it's just nice to see like a grounded kind of superhero Spider-Man story again. I do like that the supporting cast of this show are kind of like more interesting to me in general. And disregarding like Hudson Thames' stuff, like the stuff that they're doing with Lonnie, I've never cared about Lonnie Lincoln as a character as much as I do until now. Like the fact that we get to see his home life, he's not just the stereotypical like captain of the football team guy. Like he's smart, he's not a bully to anyone. He's actually like a really nice guy. And like as much as Peter wants Pearl, I don't really want to see Lonnie and Pearl break up at all. Like I think their dynamic's kind of fun. I'm curious to see like how much they build up Lonnie and then do that turn like how he is in the comics. It's just gonna hurt more, and I'm sad that like as I grow to love Lonnie, like that's the turn. I'm like scared for that turn to come, but I'm still invested. I'm still like really excited to see his journey. And as much as the Peter stuff, it's funny because like with Peter Parker, like his priorities are all over the place. Like he has the internship, he has just being with Aunt May, his friendship with Nico, his new friendship with Lonnie. Like all these things are overlapping. It's like what is he going to prioritize? And that's the thing with Parker, his luck. Like, it's just he stretches himself through too thin, and like he will lose things in the process. And I'm interested to see like that part of his journey, because he has to kind of go through that to understand like what really matters to him most. And yeah, I'm glad that we have a kind of grounded Spider-Man show like this again.
We'll dive more into the Lonnie stuff a little bit later, but I want to echo what you said a little bit, because he is. I'll keep everything spoiler free, not to worry. But that's why I'm so happy we have 3 other people here, so I can I don't actually have to go too in depth to my own theories and stuff. I can just pass it off. But Lonnie's story throughout the 10 episodes is one of my favorites, like one of my favorite aspects of the show. And so I'm looking forward to diving into his story a little bit later in the show. Chris, spoiler-free thoughts, first 2 episodes, what'd you think?
To add on to the animation, the one thing I love the most about this show is I can see the creative vision behind what they were going for. It's more noticeable than the show like What If. Like with that show, I had no clue why this was the animation choice, but whereas here, I can see the roots in like early Spider-Man, from the intro, the music, just the character designs as well. I can understand why they've gone in this direction. So that's why I kind of enjoyed animation a bit more than some other people. And to add to even that, I love the comic paneling they do when Spider-Man's fighting or there's just something going on. It allows you just to see different angles of just the same shot. And I think that's just perfect and adds to it so much more. And then I think something else that I like about this show is that it's very down to earth. Like, he is your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. We got moments of that in Homecoming, but you get to see that more here. Him helping the pizza guy and telling him to give the girl a chance, like let her. She made a simple mistake, and she even admits that she's made a simple mistake. So that little exchange, I think, just shows you what type of character Spider-Man is, or even Peter Parker as well.
It's the polar opposite of that like Batman meme, where it's like someone was caught jaywalking in Gotham and now they're never going to be able to walk again because Batman beat them to an absolute pulp. It was the opposite. It was something that I think Peter Parker and Clark Kent, Superman, are characteristics that the two of them share, where above all, their job is not fighting crime. Their job is not stopping supervillains. Their job is protecting people. Yeah. And I think that's something that they get across really, really well with that moment. We also talked about in our primer a little bit, two things that were brought up that were the most important for them to get right is for this to feel like a true, authentic Spider-Man story. And that was one of the aspects that I think shows this is a true, authentic Spider-Man story. And one of the other ones that I think it was Klein that brought up, correct me if I'm wrong, Damon, but it was that this show needed to have a banger of an intro song.
Yes.
And I think they did the trick. I'll leave it to the whoever wants to take it away if you have thoughts on the intro, because I thought it was an absolute banger of like the classic 60s one mixed in with some with 2025.
I was gonna say that I think when I first heard it, it's an intro where I don't think I'm ever gonna skip it. I'm never gonna press skip intro. I'm always gonna listen to it throughout, and even the visuals that I added to it. I know some people have nitpicked that they want to see Peter's origin again, but I like that it's kind of thrown into the intro. You see him crawling for the first time, doing all these things, and then I think my favorite thing that I noticed between episode 1 and 2 is that we're going to see a different title card that might be referencing a different comic cover or something like that. So the intro, I think, is just perfect. Like it couldn't be any better. I think they nailed it for the show.
Couldn't agree more. Ryan, Damon, any other thoughts on the intro before we pass it on to the next thing?
It's about
it's great. Like I love how under Marvel Studios, like we've gotten like 2 different like distinct Spider-Man scores that honor like the 60s theme. Like when Michael Giacchino score, like when like they knew that what they were doing when that first logo for Spider-Man Homecoming like popped up, and like you had Michael Giacchino score like sampling some of the 60s into a more modern take. Same thing with this one. Like the Neighbor Like Me song, it's so catchy, it's so fun, and there's like some great lyrics in it. Like it's just a fun song. I really love the color work that they do with the opening. It feels very anime like, which is, you know, I love to see that. I love the anime influences in the show. So yeah, no, it's great. Never gonna skip it. I'm excited to see like all the different references they do with the title card.
It also just, like you said, with the coloring, it goes to show, specifically with Leo Romero, who is one of the lead art designers on the show, which is why like I love the design of the characters. It goes to show like how important coloring is in certain things, where when you have like that complete monotone in the colors, it's very comic booky, but also, like you said, like it has a little bit of that anime feel. It's just, when you have great art and great colors and you combine those two together, that I'm the comics guy, so I love this shit. That's it, right? Like that's the combo that I love. And that intro just showed us like that's why they went with this design, right? That's the comic book influence here. This looks, it feels, it flows just like a classic comic.
And one of the aspects of Spidey's origin that we don't get touched on much in the MCU is the inclusion of Uncle Ben. So spoiler warning as we go full in-depth into episode 1 and 2 here, but we get a lot of Uncle Ben in this first episode. And the other thing that I remember messaging Ryan, my initial thoughts about this series, is I was like, they are not messing around. They get into it immediately. And right off the bat, we see Doctor Strange. We see a venomized alien monster of some kind fighting him. We see the spider bites. We get Uncle Ben references. They waste no time just giving us the lore and the fun character appearances and the action. Chris, what do you think of the start of this episode?
I think the thing that I found the funniest was him being late for school. And I was like, this just reminded me of Spider-Man 1.
Classic. Just classic Peter.
And then he opens up his bag. I'm like, oh, Spider-Man outfit gonna come out, but he's not Spider-Man yet at this point in the story. Obviously, Aunt May picks him up, a little Iron Man thing in the car. I was loving the references. And then even with Uncle Ben, I was like, it seems like it's very fresh in Peter's life right now. Like Uncle Ben's death, like, just happened clearly. And it's very hard on both Aunt May and Peter, but clearly they're there for each other, which you don't get to see too much of in the MCU films. It's only ever kind of hinted on or ever slightly touched on, but here I feel like they go in heavy on this is affecting these two characters, and I think it will also it will make their relationship stronger in this show compared to what the relationship is in the films, which I think I'm going to enjoy seeing over the course of these 10 episodes. But I love that. Love the opening, and also I love that we finally get to see a version of Peter getting bitten. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure in the MCU we have no clue how how any of that turned out. So to see Doctor Strange come, this symbiote alien, which is also voiced by Freddy Fazbear, I found out.
Yeah.
And have the whole fight, tear down Midtown. I enjoyed that, and I don't know if anyone here reads the comic. But I remember reading the issue 1 prequel comic for this, and it kind of goes into the whole destruction of Midtown High. So to see the actual battle take place was pretty nice as well. I enjoyed that. And then something I did notice one thing. After he gets bit, the spider does go into someone else's bag. So I don't know if we're gonna get a Cindy Moon situation in the future. Oh. I have no clue. That's just throwing theories in the bag at this point, though.
In another chat that I'm in, I believe it was MTF who's hanging out in the YouTube chat right now, who brought up that Cindy Moon has already been established as existing as a Midtown High person in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I think that could be a little tease that they're given there. And I actually didn't even notice it on my first watch. So that's a really good point. But I think it's a funny, essentially, what if situation on the MCU where it's like, what if a Doctor Strange and a Venom came through a portal and destroyed Midtown High? How would that change Peter Parker's life? And that's pretty much what we get with it. And we get Civil War references throughout this episode. We get like the exact beats from his intro that we have seen straight down to the score. straight down to the music type that we hear. But I want to talk about the supporting cast of characters that are introduced throughout this episode. If you want full breakdowns of who are these characters, what are their comic book powers, who do they become in throughout their comic book arcs, again, go back and check out our Everything You Need to Know about Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man video on our YouTube page. When you're hitting the like button, when you're subscribing, you can go back and check that one out as well. Ryan, I'll throw it to you here for this one first. Who stood out as the character you want to talk about the most with Pearl Pangan, Nico Minoru, Lonnie Lincoln, a new Harry Osborn? I have a feeling there's one in particular that you're most excited about.
Me, Filipino guy. Maybe I want to talk about the Filipino character making her debut in this show. And yeah, that's Pearl. Like, the fact that she's only been in the comics like 5 or so years ago, like, and she's here, like, she's making her screen debut in a Marvel animation series, in a series that like really doesn't connect with her comic origins at all. But Jeff Trammell, like, he managed to make her like part of Peter's supporting cast, is like really amazing to see, and it helps to add to like the diverse nature of this New York City. And so I'm glad that she's here. We know she still has a long way to go to get to like her superhero origins, but there's one line that Lonnie says, "Don't forget your goggles," and I'm like, yep, that's all I need. I'll take the crumb that she is a swimmer. Like, I will take that. She's practicing. You know, we're getting little bits and pieces of her origin, and I'll take that. So I'm liking that, you know, that she's a new love interest for Peter. Like, Marvel Studios Peter, like they mentioned this to me before. Like, Marvel Studios Peter has a type. You know, he has a type when it comes to his love interest. And you know what? Kudos to you. 2025 Peter would have these kind of types. So good on him. I'm excited to see like her grow as a character. I hope, you know, we get to see some of her home life as well, or like, you know, there's just the little inklings with, you know, her comic book stuff. But yeah, I love Pearl. I'm just glad to see her on the screen.
The one that I have really enjoyed the most was the recreation of Lonnie Lincoln, and he's the one I enjoyed the most. And I really thought he was going to be just like a straight Flash Thompson substitution. And I thought he was going to be Peter's bully dating his crush. And it turned out to not be the case. He ended up just being this wonderful, wonderful person. And I apologize, I don't remember the specific interview this was. I don't even actually remember if this was, making sure I saw this from a credible source and not just like some Twitter rumor thing, but I just remember seeing it pop up on Twitter. But
this can be dangerous.
With Lonnie's origin, they obviously changed things up heavily, and they aged him way down. This is a character that would typically be 30, 40 years older than Peter Parker at minimum. Now he's a high school student with him. I read that like the creators were originally considering Jessica Jones as the Nico Minoru role, but I don't remember where I saw that.
That's comic book. That's Chris Killian.
Yeah, that was Chris Killian, our guy, friend of the show, Chris Killian.
Yeah. I'm so glad they didn't do that.
So they were
it would have been very traumatic.
Heavily aged down Jessica Jones version. But I don't know if this show can handle any Purple Man references. That might be a little bit too much. And so I'm happy that they instead subbed it for Nico Minoru. The one last thing I want to say about Lonnie is I understand this show is being created by nerds, by comic book nerds. We're all nerds. We're all comic book nerds. I don't mean this in a derogatory fashion. That's all of us. But sports nerds also exist. And it bothers me so much that Lonnie Lincoln, as a quarterback in American football, wears number 36. Now, I understand that this is a character that they're making a fun reference, because when did Lonnie Lincoln appear first in comics? It was Amazing Spider-Man number 36. So they're giving a cool little reference, but then make him a damn running back. a position that can actually wear 36. Quarterbacks aren't even allowed to wear the number
Sir,
36.
you saw his highlights from his game. He could do it all. He
can
caught
do
a
it all. I get it.
touchdown.
And look,
Sorry,
he
this
can do
doesn't
everything.
matter
This
even a
was
little
all
bit.
going past my head.
I know. Like, American football. Woo!
Essentially, we just made a 9 like a midfielder.
Okay, then. I see. I see. Now, yeah.
Gotcha.
And so, long story short, give Lonnie Lake a different number or give him a different position. It does not matter at all. It could not be more inconsequential. It could not be less consequential. It's a stupid thing that does not matter even a little bit. But I was watching it and I was like, that doesn't make sense. I've done enough creative players in Madden to know that there are only certain numbers you can use per character or per
High school
position,
football, TJ.
and
There's
that
no
is not
rules.
one of them. But I thought it was silly. Chris, who of these recently introduced characters, Pearl, Nico, Lonnie, Harry, stood out the most to you?
Mine is Nico and Minoru, and that's just because I used to be a fan of the Runaway show that aired. I never got to finish it, but I loved it, and I loved Nico in that show. And I even read a few Runaway comics. So to see that she's in this show, and I love magic. Sorry, I'm just a magic person through and through. So I'm glad to see her in this show. Like, I don't know if we're gonna get any Runaway teasers or teasers about her past, her history. But I think if we're able to go into that, it can be slightly interesting. Like you said, like to see Pearl's home life. It'd be interesting to see kind of what Nico's going on, what she dealt with in the past before she met Peter. I think would be interesting. So I'm excited to see what direction they go with her character, and that's honestly that's about it. Like I'm just excited to see where Nico goes, and also I'm happy that she doesn't seem to be that the Ned replacement. I'm happy that she doesn't seem like a Ned replacement for Peter.
Yeah, I agree. She is just kind of in a totally different spot. You know, she's his high school best friend, like Ned, but they play a totally different role. I agree with that completely. I do want to see more from Nico. I kind of felt myself just kind of going, okay, this is just a person who's named Nico Minoru. This doesn't really feel like Nico Minoru yet from the early episodes. But I'm excited to see her develop more. Damon, I want the same thought from you, but I also want to just bring up Harry.
You want to say Screwball from the Twitch
the comment.
You can talk about Harry Osborn, or you can talk about these other characters and why you enjoyed them. You can double down. There's no problem with that. I did want to reference my favorite part of the first episode, where it's the little interaction between Nico and Peter when they're talking about Pearl. And we do get the little tease from Nico of like, hey, I might ask her out first if you don't hurry up. But the best part for me was the reveal that Pearl was Peter's babysitter. And
Wild.
He's like, no, it's not babysitting. She was 14. I was 11 and a half. When Ben and May would go out, we would just hang out. Was she paid? Yeah. But Peter, you can't be crushing on your old babysitter, my man. David, what about all these different characters stood out to you? And even if you're not choosing Harry Osborn, I do want to point out that I really like Zeno Robinson's Harry Osborn. He's cool as hell, and I love that it's the same voice actor as Gamma 2 from Dragon Ball Superhero. I put a piece on that in my review. I think he's doing a great job.
Yeah, I like the little modern day twist that they kind of put on him, not just being like a rich kid, but also like rich kid influencer type of deal. But something I really wanted to point out, because everyone else took all my other characters, I always say this, dude, that Doctor Strange design is so good.
Yeah.
I love my classic Doctor Strange. Although I remember going back and forth with Ryan for months about who's going to be voicing. I was like, it has to be Benedict Cumberbatch.
Right.
He's done voices for everything. He did What If, for crying out loud. How do you not get Benedict Cumberbatch to come in and just do like 4 lines of dialogue?
I wonder if it just comes down to like adhering to a really, really strict and tight budget.
Maybe
we spent X amount of money. It will cost $100,000 to get Benedict Cumberbatch to come do this, whereas someone else will do it for 10.
Just because this is MCU adjacent, right? Unless we're saying this Doctor Strange literally came from like another universe, which if that's the case, if we're getting into like multiverse stuff in this show, that'll be hilarious. If this is the show that it's like, this is where we're going into Secret Wars, and this is the thing that's kind of like teasing all of it, that would be wild. But that's like the one character who they've had the same actor voice in every single version except this one. And it's like, or at least maybe have somebody who just sounded a little bit more like him, because this had like no Benny Cumberbatch in there at all.
I thought it did. I heard Benedict Cumberbatch.
No.
The biggest change of all the additions, the biggest change is that Iron Man Tony Stark is no longer the mentor figure for Peter Parker. We get the full-on Civil War reference.
Yeah.
We get the exact score, like I mentioned, and hey, May, I just found this sweet DVD player in the garbage. There's a cool car parked outside. The exact recreation, but it is Norman Osborn in the house. Chris, what did you think of the Norman Osborn reveal? Even though we all knew it was coming, it still hit pretty cool. What do you think of the first look performance? The first look at Coleman Domingo's performance.
I like that the whole scene was like step for step, beat for beat recreation. I thought that was perfect. And I also like that. I think I'm just excited for Coleman as Norman Osborn, because we're going to get a completely different dynamic with Peter Parker than, say, Tony Stark and Iron Man in this. So I'm interested to see where it goes. I mean, obviously, we're talking about the second episode, but another big change is that he's actually taken part in an internship, and it's not just some sort of lie to pretend to be Spider-Man. He's just doing that on the side. Yeah. And it seems like, obviously, at this point anyway, Norman isn't there because, oh, he knows he's Spider-Man. He's there because he actually is looking for these smart students, which I think is an interesting change. But also makes me wonder how Doctor Strange coming through the portal has made all of these events change, like Norman coming, or Oscorp existing and stuff like that. But maybe that's just me thinking too deep into it. And this is just another universe where Oscorp just does exist. Norman Osborn's there, Harry's there, and this is just how this is turning out in this universe.
Yeah, that's true, because like there's a line that Aunt May says where it's like, I had to Google him. Like they didn't really know who Norman was, and it's like, oh, okay, like it is very MC with Jason, where it's like, okay, like Norman's not as known as like obviously like a Tony Stark would be in this universe. The funny moment in that scene is when like Norman's about to head out and he talks about the internship, and May just does the like, is it paid? It's like, yeah, it's paid. It's like, okay, all right, it's paid. Like I really like that moment. I am very excited for like Coleman Domingo's like Norman Osborn. We haven't seen much of him in these first two episodes, but where it leaves off at the end of the episode with him like revealing it, and Peter's kind of dumb for changing in a high facility building as Oscorp. Like, I'm just gonna casually put on my suit. I don't think anyone's recording me right now, but I'm excited to see where it goes from here. Yeah.
Honestly, I was just gonna say, if Norman ever does come to the live action, I would love to see Coleman play as him. I think that would just be perfect.
Yeah, I think by the time, like, I mean, we're getting Spider-Man 4 in between like now and like Secret Wars, but I think by the time they will bring in Norman, because I'm pretty sure Spider-Man 4 will tie into like the whole multiverse of it all. Like after that, whenever it happens with the multiverse, that's just the easiest way to bring in Norman Osborn. It's like Coleman Domingo, like Norman in the main or in the sacred timeline now.
Yeah. Agreed. Damon, any more Norman Osborn as mentor thoughts? And feel free to lead us into episode 2, because like we talked about, we actually have an internship here, and the internship introduces some pretty exciting characters.
Yeah, I'll say this about Norman Osborn, Coleman's. I think it's perfect. Like, it's a stoicness, but there's some deep underlying menacing tones in there. like perfect voice casting. I'd love to see Coleman kind of like hop on over if post Secret Wars whatever universes change and this Norman kind of gets brought into like live action and becomes the Norman going forward. I think that would be really cool. Yeah, so going into episode 2, like you mentioned, there's an actual internship here, guys. Yay! He's not just being used to play like, you know, a little boy's superhero sidekick thing. There's actual things going on. And God, who are we introduced to in this one? Amadeus Cho.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Asha?
my God, what's her name? You said Asha?
Jean. Asha's from Wakanda.
Yeah, Asha from Wakanda. Jean is who I was trying to think about because I was like, oh, it's insert possible spoiler about her here, and I don't want to do that. But Jean is there too, who I mentioned in our primer as well. Like, I totally forgot that this character even existed until I did a quick Google search, and I was like, Jean Fakal. Who's that? And I'm like, what do you mean I own her first issue? Because she was in Avengers Academy, and I totally forgot about that. She plays a decently sized role going in there, but it's super cool. And yeah, man, the wizard is like his horrifically terrible professor guy. And I was just like, the voice acting on him is great, but I was like, one of those characters you really need to want to like kick him in the face. Like
Ryan, who stood out among the new characters for you? We got Asha from Wakanda, Amadeus Cho, Jean Facolt, Carla Connors, as opposed to Kurt Connors, and of course Dr. Whitman, aka the Wizard, popping out as well. These were really fun additions to me, and I'm excited to know for you who kind of like stood out that you're most looking forward to knowing more about.
I will say, like, the only one of these people that I knew were going to be in the show was Amadeus. So, like, seeing it and the rest of them, I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. This is different. Like, I think the Carla Connors one was like, oh, okay, like we're doing this. I really like this this change. I'm very excited to see, you know, how far they go with Carla. Like, if it's like this whole season, she is still just a doctor. Like, she's not. There's like maybe subtle nods to her working on a lizard formula or something like that. I think I like that change because I did like the change that they did with you know, Olivia Octavius in Into the Spider-Verse. Like, I was like, okay, this is cool. Like, this is there, and in that version, like, her arms are different. Her, like, Olivia Octavius' arms were a little different. She was a friend to like Aunt May at that time, so it's like, okay, there's an interesting dynamic there. I'm curious if they're gonna follow a similar kind of change with Carla Connors in this show. But I'm excited to see, like, you know, what they do with her character here.
Agreed, Chris. How about you? I the Amadeus Cho one was the one I was like most excited about from like I know exactly who that is and what his story is perspective. But just a reminder, I was gonna bring it up earlier, but this forgot. Apologies for going on a tangent. But I've heard Chris say like 3 times, hey, I read this in this comic. Damon, I think we got to get Chris on the comic corner as soon as possible here as a guest on the show as well. But Chris, who stood out the most that you're looking forward to learning more about?
I think the 2 characters, I mean, they've been mentioned, but Amadeus Cho, because he was the only one I actually knew of before going into this. Mm-hmm. And then also Dr. Carla Connors, just because I'm interested. I do like the Lizard as a Spider-Man villain. I enjoy facing Lizard in Spider-Man 2. I enjoyed the Lizard in the Amazing Spider-Man 1 movie. So I just like the Lizard as a Spider-Man villain. And I wonder if that's something that we'll get. I doubt there'll be time in this season, but maybe in the future season of the show. We know there's season 2 and 3 on the way. So it's a possibility. And I think having these characters here also, it shows us that anything can really happen in this show. These are characters we've never seen before in the MCU, finally being introduced for the first time, whether they're gender bent or not, in this show. So I think that's something I'm very excited for, just to see all these different sort of characters come along like them. And I'm also excited to learn about Asha and Jean. I know nothing about these 2 characters. I don't know if Asha is original to the show or not.
No. She's a Marvel Comics character, not
okay.
like
I thought she was until I looked her up, and I found out like, oh no, she exists.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm excited. Even like Whitman, the whole wizard, like if he goes down a path where we get to see him as wizard in this, I'm excited for all of that. So that's one thing that I hope this show continues to do, is bring in these characters we've never seen before and putting them in like a new spotlight.
I hope so. I hope we see him as a witch, just so I can see Spider-Man kick him in the face.
You just gotta watch Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, and you get to see him fight the wizard in like the second episode. It doesn't take that long. He's like a recurring side villain that pops up throughout the series. Overall, final thoughts on episode 1 and 2 of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Damon, you got something, so I'll throw it to you first.
Oh, it's just how the episode ends. It's very Peter Parker, because as much as a smart kid that he is, and the whole him going, trying to manage his work life with his Spider-Man life, with his personal life while Nico's at a party and they're all celebrating the big football win, and he can't go because he has his internship going on. But while his internship's going on, like, oh, we have to go stop a crime going over here. You got to make sure these corgis don't catch on fire.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Corgi's catching on fire. Good grief. As smart as he is, he's still stupid enough not to think, in the Oscorp building, in the stairway, there won't be any cameras in here.
Yeah. They could have changed in the toilet where they'll probably
I'm like, Peter.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so like 13 years old. It's so freshman in high school. You know, you're not thinking that far ahead because you're kind of stupid still.
It's also funny because it brings up one of my few qualms with MCU Spider-Man, and that is he is always way too liberal with how often he takes off his mask. You know, like most iterations of Spider-Man, you can't get that thing off when he is in Spidey mode. In this one, he's like, oh, I just swung from three different buildings. I better rest on this building. Take it off so I can look up at the sky. Like, no, bro, you got to keep that thing on. You're in New York. People can just see you. There's cameras everywhere, man.
There's people in New York? What?
And so, that is a funny point. Norman obviously finds out by the end of this. He sees on the camera, he learns that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. But MTF also brings up a great point in chat. What was that villain logo we saw in the tech at the end of the episode there? Do we think that is an Oscorp logo or what? Ryan, any final thought on this episode, and what do you think?
When they did flash on that logo, I did think it was Oscorp. I think because of like Butane's motivation to like he has to burn down a building to like create a high rise for his boss. I was like, okay, maybe that's something, you know, Oscorp-y. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the route they're going with, unless, you know, they go a whole different route with a different company. Hey, I mean, again, with Pearl's origins, there was a company that she, you know, was experimenting with that got her to get her powers. So like, I will go down that rabbit hole if that's where it goes. But yeah, no, I think it's Osborn with that one. Overall, like the first 2 episodes, like I enjoy it. I'm not as fully in as I was like instantly with X-Men 97. But I do like again, the supporting cast is all great. I'm very excited to see more of them. I think, you know, as Peter starts to build these relationships with these people, like it's just gonna make it harder to watch, like, you know, him balance between now whatever happens with him and Norman and his superheroics and like school, and like there's so much going on. It's like it's always stressful to see this part of Peter's life, but it's what makes him so relatable, so enjoyable of a character. So, you know, first 2 episodes really enjoy. I can't wait to see, like, especially now that we're getting like 3 episodes next week and then another 3 and then the final 2, I believe. So like it'll be interesting to see like why they're paired together this way. Like, why wasn't the first 3? Or like, you know, why is it released in this certain way? I'm curious to see what those 3 episodes, what that arc will be.
I love how you concluded that there, because it boils down to why Spider-Man is my favorite hero. I have all these different things that I have to juggle, but at the end of the day, I have privilege and I have power, and that means I have responsibility. I have to help people. Because if I don't, and I have that power, I'm letting them down. But I also want to live my own life. I want to be happy. I want to be a person. I want to have the capacity to do these things. And it does come down to a lot to everyday life is how do you be a good person and balance your own needs with the needs of others around you who need you. And it's what makes him my favorite hero. Chris, final thoughts on Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man episode 1 and 2.
I think it's just a good time. It's fun. Straight away you get this is Spider-Man. Like you said, great supporting cast. I'm excited to see what stories that they tell in the future of them. One thing is that this show's also hilarious. I mean, even with Butane in episode 2, he burnt down the wrong building, which I thought was just hilarious. But obviously he still goes on with the plan facing Spider-Man. And also
Then he tried to burn some corgis.
yeah, tried to burn some corgis down.
Good grief.
But I think so far it's been a good time, and I'm hoping that these future episodes kind of keep up this pacing, essentially, because it'd be a shame for it to suddenly just somehow get bad. Like, I don't know how they'll be able to pull that off. But so far, I think it's a good start. Great cast of characters. And also, I think the voice work for a lot of these characters are great. Like, I think Norman Osborn sounds great. We only get to hear Robertson as Harry for a small part, but I thought even that he nails that whole influencer type character quite well. So I can't wait to see more Harry in the show. That's one character I'm looking forward to, actually. Harry's a character that I really want to see more of as well. But I think it's a great start so far.
I've almost called him Coleman Osborn like 3 times on this show as well. But, yeah, Coleman, Norman, they're so similar phonetically that I keep going back there. Damon, any final thoughts? I can't remember if I've asked you or not, and if not,
Yeah, no, this is good. It's just because of everything I have heard about this show. Who have done reviews for it, the full season reviews? They have always mentioned that the show gets better as it goes on. To Chris's point, and that was what makes me most excited going forward. As terms with the release schedule, I think it's really interesting. I would be fascinated if episodes 3 through 6 tell like more of like an arc, so that way they're paired together for a reason. I think that would be really well done. So there you go, TJ. There's your review.
You can find my full review up on agentsofandom.com. Reviewed all 10 episodes, and I will say that I did adjust and include this prior to an embargo to fix things up. But I will say that I'm actually a lot higher on this show than I was when I first watched it. And the reason for that is because when I first watched it, I couldn't help but think, damn, everything they're setting up for the future. I like this show. I like it a lot, but everything they're setting up, it's kind of better than the storyline. It's kind of better than what they're doing right now. It gets me more excited. It gets me more amped up. But when am I ever going to see this again? Who knows if it even gets renewed? If it does, it might be 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
But seeing the update that it's been renewed already, not just for season 2, but for season 3 as well, and that they already have written the script, they've already are working on the animation, it gets me a lot more hopeful because I know that this is a long-term plan. And I love when shows set things up for the long term. But I hate when it happens and then it gets canceled. Like, I don't like when it happens and when you don't know if you're going to get renewed or not. And so knowing that we are getting more Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man in the future, it gets me a lot more excited about those setups. And I'm just optimistic and excited as opposed to worried and fearful and cautious that this isn't something that I'm going to be seeing again anytime soon. So I'm higher on it now than when I first saw it. We're going to be breaking this down every week that it releases on Wednesdays. So make sure you hit the notification bell, subscribe, hit the like button so you don't miss out on our shows. We got Your Friendly Neighborhood on Hood Spider-Man on Wednesdays. We have Severance every Friday. As of now, we have Comic Corner going live every Thursday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Damon, what do we got on the go for Comic Corner tomorrow?
Oh boy. Do you like the X-Men, TJ?
Yes, I do, Damon.
Great. Well, we are talking Ultimate X-Men, which is a wildly, hilariously different team of X-Men in a almost feudal Japan-esque type of isolation. I very much enjoy it. That will be our book of the week. Tomorrow we also have a plethora of great Boom Studios titles as well. Stephanie Phillips, Red Before Black, which if you like Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, folks, a lot of those dynamics are in there. And our spooky book of the month, which is always Hello Darkness, comes out today, and we'll be talking about it tomorrow. So we'll be talking about that as well.
We'll have to talk and figure out maybe some scheduling changes because I do think we'll have Invincible live shows dropping on Thursdays, with that being a Thursday morning release.
We're always the afterthought.
And so, we want to get it out as quick as possible on that day. So we'll figure it out. We'll find something. Maybe we'll just do Invincible on another day. We will see.
We'll figure it out.
But Invincible live shows are coming. Daredevil Born Again live shows are coming. We already got Comic Corner, Your Friendly Neighborhood, Spider-Man, and Severance each and every week. So make sure you tune in, subscribe wherever you get your pods, and on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, today. Chris, where can the people find you on socials? And you have any exciting interviews or content coming up you want to share?
Luminous Dagger is where you'll be able to find me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. And interview-wise, I do have some Mythic Quest interviews coming out soon. Done those yesterday, which was exciting. For anyone that's a fan of the Fundaments Undercover, I've got that planned as well. And possibly some September 5th interviews as well. So that's what I've got coming up soon.
Heck yeah, make sure you follow Chris on social so you don't miss out on any of the awesome content he's putting out. Ryan, you can find him at Ryan_Reflex. But you've been popping up with some really great articles lately as well. So give some plugs.
Oh, man. I will start off by saying watch Paradise. Do not let that show be spoiled for you. The episode 1 twist is, Dan Fogelman, genius. If you've seen Crazy Stupid Love or This Is Us, that's kind of his bread and butter with those kind of twists. So go watch that show because Sterling K. Brown, James Marsden, Julianne Nicholson are all great in that. Really, it is more than just a political drama. I'll just say that. You need to see episode 1. After that, you will be hooked. The first 3 episodes are now on Hulu or Disney Plus, whatever platform you have in your country. Really good stuff. I have the review up right there. I do have an article on Collider as well, talking about that episode 1 twist because it's just so good. I need to talk about it as much as I can. But yeah, no, it's a great start for original shows in 2025. So do check out Paradise because I can't recommend that show enough.
Heck yeah. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today, everyone. We got great content from all of us all over the internet. So make sure you stay tuned. We will be back on Friday talking to episode 3 of Severance. We had a guest change. Liam Crowley has been booted from episode 3 and locked into episode 6. And so we got Metalcore Nerds joining us for episode 3. Myself, Rachel, and Sean for Metalcore Nerds, who will also be co-hosting the Invincible podcast we have coming over the next month. So stay tuned, hit the like button, subscribe. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. We will see you next time. Peace.